There is one other feature I would like to discuss relating to view state, and that is control state. So control state was a feature that was added with the 2.0 release of ASP.NET, and the goal behind control state is to give control developers another state repository in addition to view state that cannot be disabled. And this was the motivation behind this was many of the data binding controls in ASP.NET 1 and earlier, or 1.1 and earlier, sort of broke when you turned off view state. For example, the data grid. If you ever used the data grid in version ASP.NET 1 and you enabled the sorting feature and the editing feature, if you turned off view state, none of those commands would be sent back to the server properly. So they decided they wanted to enable or keep the behavior from working properly and still let people disable view state. So what we have now is this concept of control state, and control state lets developers distinguish between behavioral state and just the traditional state which is maintained across the postback. So the idea is to place your behavioral state into control state and then your standard state back into the standard view state. And the user cannot turn off control state. Now let me be clear about what control state is. It's not a separate hidden field. You won't see another hidden field on your form called control state, but rather it is just an appended collection of data to the view state field, which you cannot disable. So the end result is you can safely disable view state on controls that use control state. And what are those controls? Well, all the newer, in fact, all of the data-bound controls, which are the ones that tend to contribute the most to view state anyway, properly utilize control state for the behavior. So you don't have to worry about turning view state on or off with those controls. Everything will still work fine. So let me show you a demonstration of this just to be clear about what we're talking about. Now we have the grid that I showed you as a short example earlier. Let's go ahead and turn on some of the features that would require control state. So pagination, sorting, and editing. And we'll look at all these features in much more detail later. But for right now, notice that my view state is enabled, and let's just try running it so we can see the behavior of those features. So notice I can sort the authors table, I can paginate, and I can perform editing. So all that works fine. Now the test is going to be what happens if we disable view state. So I go ahead and find the enable view state, set it to false, and let's go ahead and run that again. And now because the grid view actually stores that behavioral state in control state, all my functionality is still in place. And if you want to take a look at that, let's go ahead and pull out the view state here and bring up my decoder, and we can paste that in. And notice I have down at the bottom right here a decoding of the control state. So you can actually see the control state in this decoder. And all I do when I parse the view state is look for the supplemental collection of data that's at the bottom. So notice because we disabled the view state, there's very little view state up here. It's just a single identifier for the page. Whereas the control state, let's look at the XML rendering so we can see the relationships. The control state actually stores a fair amount of data. One of the most important things the grid will store are the values of the primary keys so that it can properly send back notification events about editing and deleting and that type of thing. So that's most of what you see here. But it will also keep track of the sort direction on a particular column, among other things. So that's the control state. A piece that you cannot disable. It's a secondary part of the view state field, and it's used by controls to store their behavioral state so that disabling view state for optimization purposes does not break the control behavior.